What if I told you that one of the greatest films in British cinema history is permanently buried in studio archives, not because it's bad, but because it's too truthful? That its creator, inspired by real 17th-century events, made a film that censors and producers cut with surgical precision, tearing out its heart, yet it still remains too shocking to watch even today, and that its lead star, known for his volatile temper, once nearly killed a critic on live television simply for daring to call this film obscene. Today, we open the darkest page of British cinema, the film that still cannot be seen in its original form, Ken Russell's The Devils, 1971. A story they tried to burn, but it survived, or almost survived. Welcome to Just Sneak. If you thought you knew everything about scandals in cinema, you were wrong. We dive where even the boldest film critics are afraid to look. Today, we dissect the film that Warner Brothers still keeps under lock and key, afraid to release it into the world. Subscribe so you don't miss our new investigations. The roots of this scandal go back to the 1630s in the French city of Loudun. The story that Aldous Huxley described in his documentary book The Devils of Loudun, and that playwright John Whiting later turned into a play, actually happened. A priest named Urbain Grandier, charming, educated, and, let's say, not too strict about his vow of celibacy, stood in the way of Cardinal Richelieu, who wanted to demolish the city walls of Loudun. Then the Mother Superior of the local convent, Sister Jeanne des Anges, driven by carnal desire for Grandier, falsely accused him of witchcraft. The nuns of the Ursuline convent fell into mass hysteria. Possessions began, exorcisms, torture, and eventually Grandier was burned at the stake. It seemed like the perfect material for a historical drama, but Ken Russell saw something more in it. Russell, who by then had already won an Oscar for Women in Love and was famous for his eccentricity, was captivated by this story. His partner Lacey Tribble Russell recalled, he first saw Whiting's play on the London stage. It inspired him to immediately research the text the play was based on, Aldous Huxley's book. Russell, himself a practicing Catholic, said, "I was floored by it was so shocking, and I wanted others to be floored too. I felt I had to make it." And he did. Writing a script set to music from Krzysztof Penderecki's opera about the same events, Russell created not just a historical film, but a furious political pamphlet. But as soon as the project was launched, intrigues began. After the success of Women in Love, Russell was given almost complete creative freedom. But that didn't mean the studios didn't try to interfere. The film was supposed to be released by United Artists, but during production, the rights were transferred to Warner Brothers. And that became the beginning of a long and painful struggle. Russell insisted on filming everything as explicitly as possible, without compromise. The producers, however, looked in horror at the growing budget and, more importantly, at the growing list of scenes guaranteed to cause scandal. And here we come to the man who became the living embodiment of this film, Ken Russell. He was called the Apostle of Excess and the Wild Man of British cinema. By 1971, he had already made a name for himself with scandalous scenes. The naked wrestling of Alan Bates and Oliver Reed in Women in Love, the hallucinatory surrealism of The Music Lovers. But The Devils became his via crucis. Russell was known for his explosive temper. Once, when critic Alexander Walker called The Devils monstrously indecent, Russell hit him over the head with a rolled-up newspaper on live television. And that was not the only instance of his conflicts with the press. Critics paid him back in kind. Vincent Canby of the New York Times called Russell an amateur, trying to recreate The Last Supper with bottle caps, and Pauline Kael called him a shrieking gossip. But this only emboldened Russell. He believed that art should provoke, shock, and make people think. His personal problems, constant clashes with studios, endless legal battles with censors, all spilled onto the set. He drank, fought with actors, and, according to rumors, drove the crew to nervous breakdowns. The intensity of the shoot cost Russell his marriage. One of the key participants in this hell was Derek Jarman, a young artist for whom The Devils became a turning point in his career. It was his first film project. Russell entrusted him with creating sets that would not resemble standard historical films. He wanted them to reflect a line from Huxley's book about Sister Jeanne's exorcism, rape in a public toilet. Jarman created a nightmarish white-walled world with grotesque, almost futuristic forms, inspired by the sets of Fritz Lang's Metropolis. This visual style became one of the main reasons the film still looks unique and terrifying. But the shooting process was a real hell. Principal photography took place at Pinewood Studios in late 1970, and things happened there that would embellish any horror film. During the preparation for the climactic scene of the city wall's destruction, a technician mistakenly misinterpreted Russell's signal and detonated the explosives before the cameras were running. A huge part of the set was destroyed and had to be rebuilt. In a 2012 documentary, Russell claimed that he himself pressed the button, forgetting to warn the crew. In any case, the scene was only reshot a month later. The actors also didn't spare each other. Oliver Reed, who played Grandier, was known for his violent temper and alcoholism. But in this film, he delivered perhaps the best performance of his career. Vanessa Redgrave, who played the possessed Sister Jean, created a character so poignant, it's impossible to forget. Yet there was constant friction between them. Reed, accustomed to improvisation and raw power, and Redgrave, a demanding and intellectual actress, often didn't see eye to eye. Moreover, Redgrave at the time was deeply involved in political activism, which also created tension on set. According to rumors, Reed once drunkenly tried to prank Redgrave, but she put him in his place so effectively that he didn't speak to her for 2 days. Not all actors complained about Reed, however. Gemma Jones, recalling the shoot, noted that although she feared his wild reputation, he turned out to be very kind to her and behaved impeccably. And of course, the main problem was censorship. The film was first shown to the British Board of Film Censors on January 27, 1971, in an incomplete form. At the same time, Warner Brothers executives saw the rough cut. Both were in shock. Board Secretary John Trevelyan, who was due to retire in 1971, faced one of the most difficult choices of his career. He was a fan of Russell and believed that the film, despite all its extremism, could be defended on artistic and even religious grounds. He wrote, "More gentle violence could not have conveyed the right idea." He was supported by the board's president, Lord Harlech, whose Catholic faith made him more sympathetic to the film than most of his colleagues. But even Trevelyan understood that some scenes could not be shown in the current climate. Among them was the famous Rape of Christ scene, where mad nuns tear a life-sized crucifix with a figure of Christ from the wall, and, in orgiastic frenzy, desecrate it. Also cut was the scene where Sister Jan uses a charred bone. Russell removed them before the official submission, but even after that, the board demanded an additional 89 seconds be cut. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers and the board made separate lists of required cuts. In some cases, their demands matched, but many edits were unique to each side. In total, several minutes were removed from the film, including entire scenes. In the United States, censors cut another 2 minutes and re-edited an additional 2 minutes to achieve an R rating. Still, on May 18, 1971, the film received an X rating in the United Kingdom. When The Devils hit screens in the summer of 1971, a real storm broke. Critical reaction was overwhelmingly negative. Critics felt Russell had overdone the sensational details even in the cut version, undermining any dramatic value the film might have had. 17 local councils worldwide completely banned its screening. The Catholic Church was furious, and the Festival of Light group demanded the board certificate be withdrawn and even sought the resignation of Trevelyan's successor, Stephen Murphy. The Vatican publicly condemned the film and demanded the cancellation of its premiere screenings at the 1971 Venice Film Festival. The film was banned in Italy and other territories. Warner Brothers, the studio that released the film, was in a panic. They understood they had gotten involved in something that could cost them their reputation. But even in this chaos, there were those who saw genius in The Devils. Russell, despite everything, won the award for Best Director at the Venice Film Festival. Today, the film is considered one of the most important works of post-war British cinema. Director Guillermo del Toro calls the inability to legally see the complete version a real act of censorship. And it really is. The full, 111-minute version that Russell shot has never been released on licensed media. Now let's dig deeper into the dirtiest details that were hidden in archives for decades. First, as I mentioned, the Rape of Christ scene was not just cut, it was considered lost for over 30 years. They searched for it, but without success. Only in 2002, film critic Mark Kermode and documentary filmmaker Paul Joyce, after a large-scale investigation in the Warner Brothers archives, found the film. Editor Michael Bradzel restored the scene, assembling the audio track from other parts of the film. Russell approved this version as his director's cut, and it was first shown at the London National Film Theatre on November 23, 2004. 33 years after the film's release. But to this day, Warner Brothers does not allow this scene to be included in official releases. Why? According to rumors, the studio is simply afraid of public reaction. They claim they are not interested in releasing the director's cut. But the true reason is most likely that they don't want to stir up the past and risk new scandals. Del Toro has stated that there are forces within Warner Bros. That refuse to allow this film to be seen. Second, who hated and set up whom? Russell had constant conflicts with Warner Brothers producers. They demanded cuts. He resisted. Ultimately, the studio simply released the version it deemed fit without his consent. Some sources claim Russell was so enraged that he wanted to buy back the rights to the film, but the studio refused to sell them even to him. The actors were also involved. Oliver Reed, who by then was already a major star, demanded a renegotiation of his fee and even threatened to walk off set. Vanessa Redgrave, known for her political activism, was unhappy with how religious institutions were portrayed in the film and demanded changes to certain scenes, leading to new friction with Russell. According to rumors, it was precisely because of these constant clashes between actors and director that some scenes had to be reshot multiple times, increasing the budget of an already expensive project. Third, secret connections. Persistent rumors claim that Russell had ties with dissident Catholic priests who consulted him on exorcism rituals. Some say it was they who insisted the exorcism scenes be as realistic and brutal as possible, that they should shock the viewer to make them feel the full horror of what was happening. Moreover, it's rumored that Russell used real prayers and incantations provided by these priests, making the film not just fiction, but almost documentary evidence. Expert analysis of The Devils today is an analysis of how a masterpiece was destroyed by censorship but survived anyway. What worked well? Everything. The acting of Oliver Reed and Vanessa Redgrave, the music of Peter Maxwell Davies, the sets of Derek Jarman. It's a visual masterpiece that still amazes with its boldness. Where did the film fail? It failed at the box office because of the scandals, but gained cult status precisely because of them. How did scandals affect its reception? They transformed The Devils from a mere historical drama into a symbol of the fight against censorship, a banner of free speech. Why did it become a cult film? Because it was banned, cut, and hidden. And every time news surfaced that another cut scene had been found, interest in the film flared up anew. The Devils is not just a film. It's a cinematic corpse that refuses to die. It's a story about how human greed, the cowardice of studio bosses, and the hypocrisy of censors tried to destroy a work of art, but it survived, albeit in a mutilated form. This film changed the industry by showing that even the most forbidden material can find its audience if it's made with soul and talent. Did it destroy careers? Rather, it created legends. Oliver Reed and Vanessa Redgrave remain in film history precisely because of their roles in The Devils. Ken Russell became an icon of British cinema, a symbol of defiance. But the price was high. Russell, until his death in 2011, fought to have his film seen as he intended. He never lived to see the day his director's cut became available to the general public. And today, more than 50 years later, we still ask ourselves, will we ever see The Devils in its pristine beauty? Guillermo del Toro calls this a real act of censorship. And he's right. Warner Brothers keeps the film under lock and key, afraid to release it to the world. But the truth is that The Devils has already become part of cinema history. It has already changed the world. It has already made us think about what creative freedom means and where the boundaries of the permissible lie. On Just Sneak, we love digging into such stories. If you want to learn more about the dark side of Hollywood, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment about which film you think was the most cursed in history. And I'll sign off now to prepare new investigations for you. Remember, wherever it smells of sulfur, there's always a story they tried to hide. See you.